The 3 deadliest tanks in Battletech. That's the Tactica we're going to explore. But before we jump into my vote for the 3 deadliest tanks, and then, of course, turning it over to my fellow Battletech enthusiasts, mech warriors, and mech commanders, your vote, I want to do a little bit of a Tactica framework, because there's this duality of, if these tanks are the best in the game, which I believe they are, then naturally we want to include them in every game if we're doing that total warfare combined arms. Naturally, you have to have the battle value for it, but these tanks are very one-dimensional in that when you put them down, they're going to attract a lot of firepower. They're going to attract a lot of hate. It's like playing a stalker. If you're playing a stalker mech and you're pointing that thing at me, I need to deal with it. I need to take it out. So you're going to get a lot of aggression, a lot of focus on these 3 tanks. Your opponent has to do that. As a result of all that attention, in a good way, your Tactica needs to be spot on. If you can leverage the power of these tanks, they're going to seem broken. But at the same time, if you make a misstep or some mistakes, there's challenges to that. And of course, the tanks themselves have advantages or disadvantages, because what we see with mech design, vehicle design is like, look, I've got a certain tonnage. I've got that frame. I want something fast. I want something really armored. I want lots of weapons, and I want it to be low battle value. You don't have that formula. There are concessions. So while these are, in my opinion, the 3 best tanks in the game, we need to be aware of those inherent weaknesses, minimizing them with other combined arms, but also making sure your opponent is not able to capitalize or take advantage of it. Now, we've got that framework. Jumping in, number 1, the Shrek PPC carrier. 3 PPCs firing every single turn. We only see that on certain very, very high-end mechs. Certainly we've got the Marauder and we've got the Warhammer. Those are only 2 PPCs, and they can't fire every turn. We've got an awesome mech, assault mech, 3 PPCs firing almost every single turn, but at a massive, massive battle value buy-in. To get 3 on a tank, that range, that is huge. Now, to carry all that weight, and at a very, very low battle value, you see the battle value, you're like, this thing needs to be inflated tremendously. Very few things, clans aside, Inner Sphere can mount 3 PPCs firing to that effectiveness. And in terms of Inner Sphere tech, PPCs are a triple hit. No ammo, massive range, massive hitting power. Now, the disadvantage, we've got the tonnage. This tank, the armor is not what it should be for the tonnage, not what it needs to be for the hate that it's going to attract with those 3 PPCs. Plus the fact that it's mounted on a chassis, you're going to be vulnerable to motive hits. That's offset a little bit, because ideally we're going to get hull down. I'm going to use that turret to absolutely fire and blast away. That's, you put this tank down, you take 2 of them at low battle value. Light mechs got to steer clear. Medium mechs, you're going to cripple them in 2 turns. Heavies and assaults, yeah, they'll take them out. They'll move on the way in, but you're trading advantage for disadvantage. I'm going to put the hurt on those heavies and assaults, and you're not going to be in a position to carry on. Number 2, looking at number 2, the Onos battle tank. First thing you look at this, we've got 8 medium lasers. This just has an array of optics of medium lasers, and then 2 LRM-5s, which seem a little bit strange, but once we learn the Tactica of this, they work. I'd like them to be 10 packs or 15s, but then I'm not going to get all those lasers in. 8 medium lasers. Can you imagine lighting up something with 8 medium lasers? The massive redundancy, 4 and 4 of this, means as soon as something's in range, you're going to be hitting just based on the numbers alone. Sidebar for a moment for the new mech commanders. Redundancy in Battletech is, I've got a target. We've got range. We've got movement modifiers. If I fire 1 shot, if I've got 1 autocannon, 1 PPC, I may hit, I may miss. I'm probably going to miss, especially at the higher ranges. If I have 2 firing, and usually it's the same weapon, but it could be within the same weapons bracket. We see this with the Griffin that has a PPC and an LRM 10 pack, different weapons, but same range bracket. So in a way, they kind of have that redundancy. Now, if you have 3 or more, what this means is if I'm at the end of your range bracket and I'm zooming along with my my Valkyrie, right, get into position for that LRM 10 pack, and I'm like, no worries, because I'm skirting the range. I'm at the edge of the map. You know, they're going to need whatever, 10s or 11s to hit me. Well, if you're firing 3, that redundancy, suddenly those odds go up tremendously. Now we've got 8 medium lasers. So at long range, that's going to put some hurt. As you get closer to this tank, if I can catch you at point blank range and light you up with that, lights are just going to evaporate. Mediums are going to take a hurt. And even heavies and assaults, they're going to take some hits too. Not as powerful as the Shrek, that's why it comes in at number 2, but you have an interesting synergy with this tank. And I pushed up to the channel here under the Battletech playlist more about this tank if you want to dive in, but it's important to sidebar on this synergy, why it gets me for vote number 2. You look and say, okay, your City Fight, City Tech, Recon, you see an Onos tank, and you're like, I'm just going to stay out of range, right? Most tanks, what you like to do, not to say they're not mobile and speed isn't important, but you like to get into a place where you're hull down, meaning certain hits, we talk about terrain blocking things, certain hits will be absorbed by the building or the terrain. We want to have the front-facing armor for the least chance of motives and crits. Hull down, pointing there, you get into a good spot, you hang out. You force the opponent to come to you. Well, I can stay out of range of the 8 medium lasers, but then we've got 2 LRM 5 packs. So I'm just going to be plinking away, putting you in this place to make a decision where, especially if it's a choke point where you have to navigate the path of this tank, if I stay at range, then I'm going to be getting hit with something. I don't want to take that all day. Maybe I return firepower with more firepower, but I'm getting hit. If I close to bypass or finish it off, those 8 medium lasers. And then if I can get into a situation where I can ambush you with that tank, that's just absolutely brutal. And its armor is okay for the tonnage, but it's enough armor that I can blast you 2 or 3 or 4 turns and really put the hurt on you on multiple targets. A very, very potent tank. Number 3, and then we're going to get an honorable mention, because if you've been following my Battletech channel for any amount of time, you know that I really love this tank. And even with that personal bias, it's a good tank, but it doesn't rank up there as number 1 because the deficiencies make it very, very hard to play. And I do believe these tanks are better, but the B list is still very, very powerful. Number 3, deadliest tanks in Battletech. And this should be number 1, but we'll see why it's not. Agree or disagree. SRM carrier. First time you see this tank on the table, you pump up the tech sheet, you look at it, and you're like, there must be a misprint here. This can't be. This is impossible. 10 SRM 6 packs, not 4 packs, 6 packs. Real time, high level math, 60 short range missiles firing at you. That's insane. 1, because of the damage, but 2, because of the spread. This is the Widowmaker. This is the craziest tank where if it's a higher level mech, we're talking like mid-game now, right? Where you're playing a Marauder, you're playing an Assault Mech, a Battle Master, a Stalker, where you've taken some damage, you're still in the game, but maybe that one piece of armor is weakened. You know, you've got 5 or 6 or 8 bubbles left before it goes to internals, or late mid-game where you're still in the fight, you've still got a lot of zappy, but we've now gone to internals somewhere. The fact that this tank deals a massive amount of damage with full redundancy, and the fact that it potentially spreads out multiple places to hit, this is like kicking over the beehive and you can't run fast enough. This tank will just destroy most things that it hits. But the reason why it's number 3, so on that alone, it's got to be in the top list. But the reason why I rank this number 3 is the fact that very, very lightly armored. On top of that, extreme short range. Speed, not bad for a tracked vehicle, but not a hover. This is something, especially given the punch of it, this is something that your opponent has to destroy. It's an ambush thing. It's a tank that hides and you bring it to the opponent. Kind of like mechanized cavalry moving forward. I've got my goblins, I've got my Karnovs, I've got my warriors, like all my stuff is moving forward, right? Charging into the fray midfield. You're not charging in with a short-range missile carrier. It's going to get taken out on the way in. It's going to get torrented down. This is something that like hides on the map and your opponent knows it's there and they have to run through it anyway. Or it's a hidden if you're playing with the hidden rules, powering down, total warfare. It hides, it waits. If you can ambush, or, this is great for defensive missions. Defensive missions where you're ready to go and your opponent is forced to walk into that bee's hive. But if you can pull this off, it is absolutely crazy. And it's addicting. You get 2 of these tanks. A little pricey for the battle value. Again, not okay speed, but not very good armor. But look, all that tonnage is dropping into this. Imagine being in that vehicle, that tank commander, giving that order to fire and all those insane missiles firing. It's absolutely crazy, crazy, crazy. All right, honorable mention, and then turning it over to you, my fellow Battletech enthusiasts, the Demolisher tank. And I've talked about some tactics in utilizing Demolisher, push that up to the list. I love playing the Demolisher. 2 autocannon 20s. The only way it would be better is if I could have 3 autocannon 20s. I'm sure someone's done that. 2 autocannon 20s on a turret, excellent armor. It needs that excellent armor because the short range punch of that means it's going to have to be played aggressively and get up there. And again, it doesn't mean like I charge out with it. It'll get torrented down. But if it's part of a Wolfpack combined arms moving forward, then that's very, very potent. Very, very potent. But if I get up there, 2 autocannons, wow, yes. But higher battle value, very short range, and the motive hits make it very, very vulnerable to being stopped along the way. One more honorable mention. The Saladin hover attack craft. Take 1 autocannon 20, mount it on something super, super, super fast, and full speed ahead, blast and fire away. Unless you're hugging the back of the hex map, I'm going to get rear armor on you. I'll get 1 autocannon 20 shot, unless I bring 3 or 4. You never just bring 1 Saladin. You need a minimum of 3. But those can be terrifying in themselves. That gets an honorable mention because there's an innate Tactica and very one-dimensional, not in a bad way, play. That's my vote for the top 3. Maybe we could have expanded it to the top 5, but top 3 absolute auto-include deadliest tanks in Battletech, your vote. Then if you've got an honorable mention to check out, to look, what would that be?